My name is Meline Carter, 35 years old, creative director at a media company in Seattle. On the morning of December 23rd, I left my small apartment with a large gift box and a freshly baked cherry pie, the kind my grandmother taught me to make when I was just a kid under 10. I drove nearly 900 miles, crossing 3 states to return to Rapid Falls, a small town in North Dakota I left almost 8 years ago with a promise never to look back. I didn't tell anyone. I wanted to surprise my mom, Teresa, and my younger brother, Caleb, who's 6 years younger than me. I figured they'd be shocked. Maybe, after all these years of me being the only one to keep in touch, sending money regularly, checking on mom's health, paying off Caleb's student loans, and buying birthday gifts for both of them, maybe there'd be a small moment of genuine happiness when they saw me standing on the porch, arms full of Christmas. I'd miss many holidays with them because of work, but I never forgot to send money. This year, I wired an extra $900 at the beginning of December with a note for a special dinner and a little extra for Caleb to fix the car. My mom replied with a short thanks in a text, no emoji, no call. I told myself maybe she was tired. During the drive, I pictured her face when she opened the door, surprised and then bursting into tears, hugging me tight like she did that Christmas leave back in 2015. I imagined Caleb running out, grabbing the gift box from my arms and saying, "Did you really bring me that console, sis?" It took me almost 12 hours to drive through a snowstorm. The tires slipped more than once in Montana. I stopped at a local store in Bismarck to buy ingredients, selecting deep red cherries and premium cinnamon sticks for the pie. I also picked out a forest green wool scarf for Mom. The color she once said brightens my whole face. When I called to let her know I was close, she only said, "Yeah, we're getting dinner ready, no rush." Her voice was flat, not a single exclamation point. She didn't ask if I needed a break or if I'd eaten. When I said I'd brought gifts, she added, "There's nobody new here, don't worry." Still, I kept driving. I thought maybe she was just busy. I thought. Families can be a little distant, but deep down, there's always a bond. I thought I was still Teresa's daughter and Caleb's sister. I reached town around 6 p.m. Snow was still falling lightly. Maple Street, leading to Mom's house, was lined with warm, golden Christmas lights, and I saw the driveway packed. There was a red SUV, a brand new Lexus, and even a sleek Mercedes I'd never seen before. I was surprised. Mom hadn't mentioned any big gathering. I checked my hair in the rearview mirror, reapplied a dark red lipstick, then carried the pie and the bag of gifts toward the 2-story house I grew up in. Christmas music floated out from the window. The scent of roasted turkey and cinnamon drifted in the cold air. I stepped onto the porch, hands slightly trembling from cold and nerves. I rang the doorbell. The door opened. My mom stood there. She wore a black velvet dress, a string of pearls, a glass of red wine in hand. Her eyes scanned me once, then turned cold. "Sorry, I think you have the wrong house." I froze. "Mom, it's me, Meline." She didn't blink. "I think you're mistaken. No one by that name lives here." And then she shut the door. No explanation, no hug, no Merry Christmas. I remained on the snowy porch, holding the warm pie in my hands. My heart clenched like someone had grabbed it and squeezed. I don't remember how I made it back to my car. I just remember the snow getting heavier, the icy wind smearing the mascara I had carefully applied that morning. The cherry pie I carried all those miles now sat abandoned on the porch, still steaming through its golden crust. I placed the gift bag in the back seat and sat motionless behind the wheel. The porch light kept blinking, laughter from inside spilled into the night, but I, the only daughter of Teresa, was left outside the door like a stranger. I grew up in Rapid Falls. That house used to be where I belonged once. My parents divorced when I turned 16. At the time, I was still in high school, and Caleb had just started 5th grade. The split wasn't dramatic. No legal battles, no shouting, but the cold that followed never lifted. My father, Bruce, moved to Arizona with a woman named Darlene, whom he called his true soulmate. He paid child support on time, but called less and less. Within 3 years, he vanished completely from my life. But Caleb kept getting birthday gifts from Dad and Darlene. I once resented him, but over time I realized Mom held the real keys to our lives. Teresa worked as head nurse at the city hospital. Her shifts ran from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. She left with a cold lunch and came home with dark circles under her eyes. I learned to cook from YouTube to make dinners for us and Caleb. I tutored him in math, worked weekends at a bookstore to help cover school costs. One time, she collapsed in the living room from exhaustion. I skipped 2 weeks of school to care for her. I didn't complain. I believed. That's what a good daughter does. And after finishing my degree in communications, I didn't leave immediately. I worked for a small marketing firm in Bismarck, just a 45-minute drive from home. Every Sunday night, I brought food home for Mom and Caleb. Sometimes I did her laundry and stayed up late preparing reports for Monday morning. Caleb had just started community college. I paid for his textbooks, gas, even bought him a new laptop when the old one accidentally fell into a lake. So I only moved out when a major firm in Seattle hired me with double the pay. I remember the day I told Mom in the living room. She looked up from the utility bill and said, "Yeah, guess it's time you lived for yourself." Caleb, then 25, still living at home, hugged me and said, "You gotta crush it out there, sis. Prove this family's not all failure." I thought he meant it. 3 months later, Mom called at midnight. "The heater's broken. They quoted $3,500. I don't have it." I wired the money first thing in the morning. 2 months after that, Caleb called. "Hey, I landed an interview at the shop, but my car's dying. I can't even get there unless it's fixed." I sent $4,200 for the transmission and new tires. After that, I set up regular transfers. $850 monthly to Mom, $500 to Caleb. Sometimes I wondered, they're working. Why can't they manage? But then I felt guilty. I was earning good money. They were my family. Helping was the right thing to do. I only paused when I started noticing odd changes. Mom had a new sofa set, the kitchen was upgraded, European-style finishes, Caleb posted pictures of a brand new pickup, GPS installed. When I asked, they laughed. "Got a huge sale. Besides, gotta treat yourself sometimes, right?" I convinced myself everything was fine. I was just being sensitive. But when phone calls were cut short, texts went unanswered, and all communications circled back to "can you send more?" I felt something chill in my spine. That chill seeped into every call I made, every bill I paid for them, every flight I booked for Mom that she never used. It was the feeling of being used, but lacking proof to confront it. I had moved to Seattle to live my own life, but my heart was still trapped in Rapid Falls, in the invoices, in my bank statements, in every time I whispered to myself, if I don't help them, who will? I believed love would be returned. I thought I was a good daughter. Until that night, when my own mother looked me in the eyes and said, "Sorry, I think you have the wrong house." I started feeling the distance when our calls became less frequent. At first, Mom would cancel because she was too tired after the night shift. Then Caleb would promise to call back, but never did. Gradually, I became the only one initiating contact. One day, I returned Caleb's missed call during my lunch break. He answered flatly. "Why'd you call back? I just wanted to ask if you could send this month's money early. My card's about to be charged." I paused, keeping my voice steady. "Sure. By the way, did you get the package I sent last week? I included your favorite snacks and a new hoodie." Probably. Haven't opened it, been busy. And that card game you sent months ago? Mom gave it to her friend's kid. I don't really play." I gave a dry laugh. That game had to be ordered from Australia. After Caleb texted, "Man, I wish I had that set," I thought I was doing something meaningful. To them, it was just stuff. Last winter, I came down with severe pneumonia. I was hospitalized for 5 days. The doctor told me to take at least 2 weeks off. I called Mom, still wheezing through the oxygen tube. After a brief silence, she asked, "So you're not coming home for Christmas?" "I can't. I'm in the hospital." That's too bad. Caleb was hoping you'd get NBA tickets this year. And those new headphones. I told him not to expect anything, but he still hoped. Lying in a hospital bed, I got no "how are you feeling?" No "I'll come visit," or even "I'll call tomorrow." Just disappointment over gifts. Still, that year, I sent money, I ordered the presents, I handwrote cheerful holiday cards like everything was fine. I told myself, maybe they're just stressed, tired, preoccupied. Each month, the transfers continued. $850 to Mom, $500 to Caleb. It started to feel like I was paying them to keep my place in the family. I began calling those payments my daughter tax. I texted Mom weekly. Most messages were seen. When she did reply, it was often something random. Mrs. Nancy from the old neighborhood sold her house, or the church is redoing its roof. Never a single question about me. Once, I shared that I was appointed project lead for a major international campaign. The CEO even sent a printed commendation. I sent Mom a photo. No response. 3 days later, Caleb texted. "Hey sis, I broke my phone. Can you help me get a new iPhone?" No congratulations. No, I'm proud of you. Everything they said to me translated into dollar signs. I, at 35, working from morning to night, cooking alone, sleeping alone, living far from home, kept wiring money back like some guilty child making penance for a sin I never committed. One night after work, I walked through the drizzle in Seattle. I stopped by a stone wall covered in handwritten love notes. Amid the clutter, one scribbled line stood out. No one really forgets you, they just remember you when they need something. I stood in the rain a long time. Many nights I'd look at my bank account and ask, if I stop, will I lose them? But the real question was, if they only stayed because of the money, did I ever really have them? I'm not someone who lives by suspicion. I've always made excuses for Mom and Caleb. I've told friends they're just not expressive or they're too busy to call. I hid the emotional cuts behind layers of success and strength. But at some point, even someone who keeps looking for the light has to admit some rooms just don't have windows. The white painted wooden door shut in my face with a dry click, more brutal than any rejection in words. I stood there on the snow-covered steps, holding a slightly warm cherry pie, gift bag weighing heavy on my other arm. No one opened the door again. No one called my name. Just the music from the speakers inside kept playing. Warm, meaningless, cruel. I stepped back, trying to stay upright in my soaked boots. For a second, I still hoped it was a misunderstanding, that my mother, Teresa, would open the door again, force a smile, and say, "Oh, it's you! Come in, sweetie, it's cold out there." But the lights behind the curtains just blinked rhythmically. No one came out. No mishap explained that cold stare or the words, "Sorry, you've got the wrong house." I was there for less than a minute, but it felt like I'd turned to stone in the Dakota snow. As I turned to leave, the door opened again. A tall man appeared. Slicked back hair, charcoal suit, red tie. For a second, I didn't recognize him. Caleb. He looked at me, and in a flash, his eyes widened in surprise, but it quickly shifted into something I couldn't name. Shame? Fear? Or just that awkward look you give an outdated item you didn't expect to see again? "Mom, who is that?" Caleb asked, voice slightly high, trying to stay composed. I spoke up. "It's me, Meline, your sister." He looked at me, didn't move forward or step back. One hand rested lightly on the door frame, an invisible barrier. "Oh, right, I thought you weren't coming." "You thought?" I steadied my voice. "You knew I was coming. I called, I texted, I sent gifts. You asked for more money 3 weeks ago, Caleb." He glanced behind him, where golden lights flickered in the living room. Then back at me, voice lowering. "Not now, we've got guests. Mom's a little on edge, you know how it is. Don't make a scene, it's Christmas." "I'm making a scene?" I let out a short, bitter laugh as anger rose in my chest. "I drove over 500 miles through a snowstorm, brought pie and gifts for you and Mom, and I'm the one causing trouble?" Caleb looked around, clearly worried someone might overhear. Fine. We'll talk later. Just go. Mom doesn't want to see you right now. That was the moment I let go. The cherry pie dropped into the snow, splitting in half. The last bit of warmth from its crust steamed briefly, then vanished into the freezing air. I let the gift bag fall beside it. One box popped open, revealing the emerald green cashmere scarf I'd picked out with such care. Caleb didn't bend down, he just stood there. In the flickering lights behind him, Caleb was now the man of that house, a house that no longer had space for me. You should be ashamed of yourself, Caleb, I whispered. But maybe you don't even remember what that feels like. I turned away, no one stopped me. As I stepped off the porch, the door shut again. I heard laughter inside, the clink of glasses. Then a familiar voice cut through the barely closed door. Thought it was someone else. Just stood out there, like some uninvited stray. My mother. No doubt about it, her voice, her tone, her words, as if I was a nuisance, an accident, a stain she was trying to hide from her perfect party. Back in the car, my fingers were so cold I couldn't turn the key. In the rearview mirror, I saw myself. Hair messy, cheeks flushed with cold and grief, mascara smeared like soot. A woman who brought kindness and tradition home, only to be tossed out like trash. That Christmas I received the most valuable gift, the truth. Not pretty, but necessary. I sat in the car for nearly 30 minutes, unable to leave. My hands gripped the steering wheel, trembling. Though I couldn't tell if it was from the cold or the shock, my breath fogged up the windshield in long streaks. Then my phone rang. Caleb's name lit up the screen. I hesitated for a few seconds before picking up. Madeline, are you still out there? His voice was hushed, like he didn't want anyone to hear. I answered, flatly. In the car. Look, don't be mad at Mom, okay? She's just stressed. Tonight's a big deal. There are guests from Palm Springs, even Mr. Jameson, her spa investor. Everything had to be perfect. I said nothing. I didn't think you were actually coming. Mom said you canceled, so we figured, if I'd known, I would've what? Let me in so I didn't stand outside like a beggar? Silence. No excuses. No real apology, just a repeated line. Let's meet tomorrow. For coffee. We'll talk properly. I didn't bother answering. Just as I was about to hang up, he added, Send me your hotel address. I'll pick you up. Then the call ended. Or so I thought. I set the phone down on the passenger seat, leaned back, and tried to steady my breath. But not even 2 minutes later, from the still-lit phone, I heard voices. Clear and unmistakable. She really thinks we're meeting for coffee tomorrow? Caleb's voice. So, are you going? That was my mother, Teresa, her voice sharp, tired, annoyed. Of course not. Why would I? So she can beg for more money? I told her to wait. Coffee's cold and she can find her own ride. Laughter followed. I grabbed the phone, stared at the screen. The call was still connected. Caleb hadn't hung up. She still thinks she's part of this family, my mother scoffed. That girl's lived alone too long, made up her own story. Sends money, gifts like it matters. We just accept it to be polite. Well, saves us the trouble, Caleb snorted. If she stops sending it, even better. I couldn't catch every word after that. Glasses clinking, music swelling, someone talking about the new spa in Boulder Creek, and how sharp Caleb looked tonight. I sat frozen. Each word they said sliced into me. All those years I'd sent money for Mom's house repairs. Turns out it funded her luxury spa. All the car payments I made for Caleb so he could look fancy for his friends. Every call, every message, every thoughtful gift, now labeled a burden. My hand shook as I scrolled back to the call. Still active. I let it run. Not because I wanted to hear more, but because I needed to record it. Some part of me still couldn't believe this was real. That they, the people I once gave my whole youth to care for, were now calling me a walking ATM. That poor thing who always needs attention. The lonely older sister no one really cares about. She really thinks she belongs, sends a few bucks, and thinks she's earned a seat at the table? Caleb's laugh cut through me. "A few bucks?" I whispered as tears slid down my face. I opened my banking app. The numbers stared back at me, painfully precise. $850 per month for Mom, 4 years straight. $500 monthly for Caleb. $3,200 for emergency brake repair. $2,500 for Caleb's friend with cancer. $1,000 for Mom's surprise birthday. Every bit of it was real, and I thought it was love. The call finally disconnected when my phone hit 1% battery. I didn't plug it in. I didn't hang up. I just sat there, alone in the dark, in the snow, with a truth colder than any rejection. They never loved me like family. They only loved what I gave. Here is your American English translation, following your rules for money, time, and natural phrasing for voice narration. I got back to the motel just before midnight. My hands were stiff, my lips cracked, from the cold and from too many things I couldn't put into words. The third-floor room smelled like old heater coils mixed with bleach, but to me in that moment, it felt like a tiny fortress. The only place no one could knock on the door and say, "You're not welcome here." I dropped my bag, pulled out my laptop, and powered it on. My hands were still shaking, but this time it wasn't from the weather. It was something sharper. Not pain, clarity. I opened my bank account. The familiar interface showed hundreds of transactions, each month like clockwork. I started taking screenshots, every line, every entry, each labeled Mom, Caleb, house bills, emergency, hospital, birthday, all documented, nothing skipped. It took over an hour to gather what I needed. Then I opened the credit card app. Dozens of purchases under authorized user Meline Carter. One was nearly $4,700 for spa equipment. Note: non-refundable steam therapy unit. I froze every card. No warning. The one Mom was using for medications, permanently canceled. The one Caleb had access to since last year, gone from the system. My move to the recurring transfers tab. $850 a month to Mom, $500 a month to Caleb. I hit cancel on each, confirmed again. With every click, I felt a chain fall off my neck. Then I opened a new email to Teresa Carter at Carmel, Cares. Subject: termination of financial support, effective immediately. I typed every word calmly. No insults, no drama, just facts. Direct, final. I have terminated all financial support in any form. All secondary credit cards have been locked. Monthly transfers have been canceled. The total I've contributed over the past 4 years is $76,540, not including gifts, supplies, or medical/home renovation costs. All records have been archived for legal purposes if necessary. Please do not contact me for financial assistance again. Meline Carter. I read it 3 times. No typos, no extra emotion, no questions left. I hit send. 5 minutes later, the phone lit up. Text from Caleb. "What the hell are you doing? I can't pump gas. Card declined." Text from Mom. Meline. "Oops, Meline, call me now." A minute later, "I'm in the middle of hosting. Are you trying to humiliate me?" Another text from Caleb. No punctuation, no break. "Are you crazy? Who do you think you are, cutting everything off like that? Rent's due, do you even care?" I silenced the phone, turned it face down, and stared out the window. Outside, snow was falling, quietly, layer by layer, covering rooftops, streets, and the broken bond I had just buried. An hour later, I checked my phone. Nearly 30 missed calls, texts longer than a bank statement, an email from Mom at 2:12 a.m. "Meline, you're clearly in emotional distress. What you've done is impulsive and harmful. Families don't cut each other off over money. If you don't restore the accounts within 48 hours, I'll be seeking legal counsel." A second email from Caleb. "Cutting financial support right before Christmas is financial abuse. You won't get away with this. I'm speaking to Mom's attorney." I just laughed. They didn't ask why. They didn't ask if I was okay. They didn't even realize that the things they said that night, the ones they thought I didn't hear, exposed everything about what family really meant in that house. The next morning, I drove away from Rapid Falls. No goodbyes. On the dashboard, I played an old playlist, one that used to welcome me home. The first track, Coming Home. But this time I knew I had no home to return to. And somehow, I felt freer than I ever had. Here is your English translation in natural American style with spoken-friendly formatting and unit handling as requested. I returned to Seattle on the morning of December 25th. The city was covered in fog, eerily quiet. On the drive back to my small apartment, I didn't play music or make any calls, just let the sound of tires rolling across the icy road soothe the quiet shatter inside me like a lullaby. Nothing had changed in the sixth-floor apartment. The little fake Christmas tree still sat in the corner, and the box of holiday cookies someone gave me was still on the kitchen counter. But I was no longer the same woman who had walked out of this place 3 days earlier. I spent the next 3 days sleeping. No check-ins with work, no email. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and deleted all contact info for Mom and Caleb. Messages kept coming in, but I didn't read them. I didn't need to know anything else. On the fourth day, I scheduled an online therapy session with Dr. Helen Morse, a therapist a colleague had recommended last fall. Back then, I told myself I didn't need help. Now, I knew better. In that first session, I could only say one thing. My family doesn't need me. They just need my wallet. Dr. Morse nodded gently. She didn't interrupt, didn't try to fix me. She listened like I was an unfinished piece of music, not a problem to be solved. By the third session, the full picture became clear. I'd been trapped in a system of financial abuse disguised as duty. Caleb and my mom manipulated me with guilt, strategic silence, and unspoken expectations, turning me into an unconditional income source. Dr. Morse said something that left me speechless the rest of the session. Numbers don't lie, Madeline, but it's your emotions that have been exploited the most. It wasn't heartbreak. It was awakening. Weeks later, I started going out on weekends, walking around Capitol Hill, browsing used bookstores and cafes with scratched wooden chairs and walls full of scribbled notes from strangers. I learned to sit alone without feeling lonely. I learned to cook dinner just for myself and not feel guilty for not sharing with someone. One Saturday afternoon, while taking down recycling, I met June Mathers, my downstairs neighbor. Nearly 70, warm brown skin, gray hair in a neat bun, always carrying a yarn basket. "You're the girl who leaves the building at 6:45 every morning, right?" she asked, squinting through her glasses. I laughed, surprised she'd noticed. "Exactly 6:45, unless it's pouring," I said. We started talking. June lived alone since her husband passed 5 years ago. Her kids lived far away. Occasional calls, but rarely visits. She didn't complain. She spoke like reading aloud an old journal entry. She taught me how to knit. I taught her how to video call her grandkids. Every Sunday, I had dinner at her place. Her stew was better than anything my mom ever cooked. We didn't need many words, just presence. She said, "A real family isn't who you share blood with. It's who never turns love into a transaction." Gradually, I opened up to others in the building, the elderly gay couple from the third floor, the biology student who always carried cat treats, the widower from 4 who gave me apples from the garden behind his truck. We called ourselves the chosen family. Work picked up too. When I returned, my boss Amanda stared at me for a moment, then said, "I don't know what you did during the holidays, but your eyes, they're different, sharper, fuller." I just smiled. A few months later, I was assigned to lead a collaborative project with a major brand. I bought a new blazer. Not to impress anyone, but to remind myself, I'm living this life for me now, not to be useful to someone else. I opened a new savings account called Freedom Fund. Each month, I deposit the exact amount I use to send to Mom and Caleb, not for spending, but for investing in the only thing that's ever truly mine, myself. On Christmas Day, a year later, I sat beside June at the little dinner we'd prepared together. No big tree, no fancy tablecloth, no one demanding anything. But I had never felt more loved without having to pay for it. One April afternoon, I was standing outside an old bookstore near Pike Place, waiting for a coffee date, when I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure through the window. Tall, thin, wearing a gray coat with frayed shoulders, he stopped at the postcard stand, holding one with a picture of the Space Needle in the snow, tilting his head to read the fine print on the back. I almost didn't recognize him, but when he turned around, my eyes met a once familiar gaze. Caleb. He looked very different from the last time I saw him on Mom's front steps. Stubbled face, heavy eye bags, messy hair that used to be perfectly trimmed. Gone was the Caleb who drove a Mercedes, dressed in designer coats, and walked out of fancy parties. When our eyes met, I saw a flicker of panic cross his face, then vanish just as quickly. Caleb walked toward me, slipping the postcard into his pocket, wearing a forced smile. Madeline, wow, you're still in Seattle? I stood upright and gave a slight nod. Still here, you? Moved back 3 months ago, working for a small logistics company, not my dream job, but... He shrugged. It's something. I glanced down at his shoes. Worn heels, salt stains. There was no judgment in my mind, only an odd calm. I see. Hope you're doing okay. He hesitated. Do you have a few minutes? Maybe we could sit? I'd like to talk. I looked at my watch. In 10 minutes, I was meeting June at the nearby cafe. But what kept me from saying yes or no right away was Caleb's eyes. They didn't carry arrogance or avoidance anymore. There was, perhaps, a hint of regret, or at least an effort to show it. I pointed to a wooden bench on the sidewalk. Here's fine. I don't have much time. Caleb nodded. We sat down like strangers sharing a park bench. I know, you probably don't want to hear anything from me, but there are things I think I should say. I stayed silent. What happened last year, there's no excuse. I was awful, worse than you even know, and I heard the recording of that call. I know you heard everything. I know what Mom said too. I turned to look at him, calm, direct. And then you also know I didn't walk away because of one dinner. It was years and years of being used. Caleb nodded, face pale. After that, Mom's spa went under, her investor pulled out, she lost the house, I lost my car. We lived off savings until there was nothing left. That's when we finally realized what you'd really done for us. I looked out at the bustling street, heart unshaken. No, you didn't realize what I did. You just regret that it stopped. He lowered his head. Maybe, but if there's a chance, I hope I can make things right. Not for money, but because I lost the best sister I ever had. I gave a faint smile. You didn't lose me. You let go long ago. I just finally accepted it. Caleb's voice cracked. Do you ever think about forgiveness? I stood, pulling my coat on. Forgiveness isn't the same as going back. I don't hold grudges, but I hold boundaries. In family, Caleb, isn't a place that uses love to lie. Real family means love and respect. We weren't that. I pulled out my wallet and placed a $10 bill gently on the bench beside him. Get yourself a warm coffee, but don't get confused. This isn't a restart. This is a proper ending. I turned and walked away, light on my feet. Behind me, Caleb didn't call out. Didn't chase, only the Seattle wind brushing past my coat, carrying the scent of sea salt and new beginnings. At the cafe, June was already waiting. As I sat down, she said, "You look different, lighter." Ha! I nodded, wrapping my hands around the hot cocoa she slid toward me. Yeah, for the first time in my life, I don't feel like I owe anyone anything. Madeline's story is a reminder that sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't to forgive, it's to let go. In a world where family ties are often used as a shield for manipulation, she had the courage to walk away from toxic bonds, set new boundaries, and find peace in a chosen family built on real respect. In real life, many are learning this hard truth. Not everyone who shares your blood deserves your love and loyalty without question. What do you think about Madeline's decision? What would you do in her place? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories about family and life.